Howdy YouTube, and welcome to this episode of the Gunman. So this video here is part 2 of the spot repair on this little Hyundai XL. So the first video we went right through the repair procedure, we then got it into primer, we got the infrared curing lights onto the primer, baked it out, and part 2 will be picking it straight back up where we left off in part 1. So obviously the primer's been dried out and I'm ready to start blocking it down. So I'm just blocking it down here with some 240 grit. Pretty classic sandpaper grit to use when you're blocking repairs down. It's probably what most people use, although a lot of the time I just use 180 grit. Depending on the amount of primer you've got there and how good the repairs are, that will vary, and I do say that in some of my other videos. So I was pretty happy with the repair on this. It didn't have to be perfect, as I did mention in the previous one. It is just for a car yard, and at the end of the day, the cheapest quote wins, and I've got the skills to pay the bills, as so to speak. Some people will get everything handed to them on the platter, and every single part must be taken out. You know, that bumper bars have to be pulled off, tail lights taken out. But for me, I'll do whatever it takes to make $1. And if you go up to the car yards and try and quote a job and you say, oh, I've got to pull the tail light out, I've got to paint the whole pillar, so the windscreen pillar and all that, and I've got to paint that rear door to blend the colour in, they will say, well, how much is that going to cost me? You say, oh, $500-600. And they'll say, sorry, the next guy's going to do it for $300 or whatever it may be, and you've lost the job. So at the end of the day, this is what you've got to do to keep businesses afloat. Sometimes, you know, when it's quiet out there and when you've got those big corporations taking all the work off you because they're all in bed with the insurance companies and they get kickbacks and all that corrupt garbage, sometimes you've got to do this kind of thing. I know there's going to be people out there that tell me, oh, you're a hack, you shouldn't be doing that kind of stuff, and at the end of the day, the car yard would not give a crap. If they were able to sell the car with the damage for the same amount, they would, but they know that it's an eyesore and they just want a quick tidy up just so that they can sell the car. That's the world. That's the world we're living in, you know. So we'll continue on with the job. I don't feel as if I have to justify myself, but if I just say something like that, at least the real people know where I'm coming from. But anyway, I just orbital sanded it down with some 400 grit using the 5mm orbital sander, just the Chicago pneumatic orbital sander, which I use. Pretty happy with that one. Obviously a pneumatic air-powered sander. I think they're a little bit better than the electric sanders. For workshop use most of the time anyway, they do last a bit longer, less parts to break down on them like your brushes in the electric sanders. So drop of oil in them once every week or two and they'll last forever. However, someone that's at home with a sort of smaller compressor, it might actually be in your best interest to get yourself an electric sander because you're going to have the power behind it without having the high power compressor, so something worth keeping in mind. But anyway, once I sanded all the 240 grit scratches out with some 400, I'm then going over all the primer edges. So where we've primed around those edges, you're going to get little bits of orange peel, and then just making sure I sand them out with some 500 grit. So in between each stage, I make sure I get my high pressure air blower, dust it off, and yeah, keep it clean so that you can inspect. Another part of the reason I wanted to make this video was to sort of show the DIYer what goes into doing a small spot repair like this, and also show people that may think of tackling a job like this if you're just like, hey, well, I might give that a shot myself, you know. So this is probably goes for about 40 minutes, this double video set. And obviously work time might have been, say, 3 hours all inclusive, maybe, yeah, give or take, I guess. And that's in an environment where I have all the tools and equipment and I have the knowledge. So if you go up to a repair shop and they say, we're going to charge you $600 to do a job like that, you're sitting at home thinking, I might be able to save myself a couple of $100. Short of having all the tools and equipment and knowledge, you're not going to save any money. And there's a good chance that you're not going to get your color correct. You're going to be unhappy with the job and wishing that you had just spent that extra couple of dollars and got someone else to do it who does know how to do it, and they would have done a better job, got it done quicker, and you'd usually have your car back in a day on a job like this, I would imagine, for most shops anyway. But yeah, so blend areas, I just sanded it down with some 800 grit this time. Sometimes I use 600 grit, sometimes I use 800 grit, but yeah, 800 is probably a little bit safer to use on your blend areas. If you do cut through, yeah, well, less chance of cutting through, I guess, if you're using that little bit finer sandpaper. That was on the Orbital sander, and then I'm using a piece of grey Scotch-Brite to scuff all the shiny bits on my blend areas. So anywhere that the paint hasn't been sanded, your new paint going over the top will not stick to it. So yeah, make sure all those shiny spots are scuffed down with a piece of Scotch-Brite just on the blend sections. But yes, colour matching, it's something that I'm going to give you a quick look at the colour, but I'm not actually going to go into detail as to how I match the colour, because it's something that is literally going to take years to master, and even then you're still going to get it wrong. I probably get one wrong every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and that's after 17 years. Yeah, I started in the year 2000, so my 17th anniversary is, yeah, probably a couple of weeks away. So yeah, we're all human. You can just make a misjudgment. You can just look at that and you might think, well, that'll blend, you know, and then it might not. And as far as silvers goes, you're actually better off having it a touch lighter than darker. Let's just say you've got, say, a 90% match, and it's on the light side. That's going to be a lot easier to blend than a silver that is on the dark side. No pun intended to Star Wars. But as you can see there, that color there is a little bit lighter, and it might even be a touch redder. If anything, it probably could do with a tiny little drop of blue in it or something like that. And yeah, the specific colors you're going to have to use and the amounts you're going to have to use, that is literally just going to take time and error, trial and error and time. When I went to trade school, I spent a lot of that time learning how to color match, because I didn't get to do it at work, because they didn't have time to teach me. And if I was to go and, say, ruin 500 mils worth of paint because I put too much color in, well, it's going to be a lot more expensive when it's at work rather than being at trade school. Well, you're there to stuff up, you know, the paint's basically provided anyway by the government, because the government's pay for the schooling, and you obviously pay a little bit for your tutoring as well. So that's how it is. But anyway, once the prep work's done, obviously you gave it a good clean down, so a blow down. You can wipe it down with wax and grease remover if you want, and if it is a car yard job like this one was, and it's been cleaned with Armor All and silicone cleaners, just Prep-Sol it like 100 times, or wax and grease remover, layman's terms, I guess, widely known as Prep-Sol. Yeah, just 10 times if you have to, you know. I was pretty lucky with this one. It wasn't too bad, although I got a couple of bits of crap in it. We all get it. It was no big deal to get them out. I think there was 1 or 2 tiny little silicone spots in it, but that's just part of painting, I guess. Yeah, just edge mask that back edge there, and I just put a piece of tape down there, flip it back over, and make sure there's a little bit of a gap there so that your paint can flow in. But with those edges, you're not like forcing the paint in there. You're just letting a little bit get there. Worst comes to worst, you can get a bit of T-cut or cutting compound, do a quick hand cut or something like that, and it's usually pretty good. Just make sure your masking's nice and tight. You don't want it flapping all around the place when you're painting. I personally prefer to use plastic. It's quicker and easier. If you like to use paper, go for it. And I guess if you're doing this at home, you can use bits of newspaper and some sort of a drop sheet or whatever it be. Just keep in mind that the plastic that I'm using is treated on one side. I think it's called Corona treated. And basically what that is that the paint will stick to that plastic and not flake off. So if you're just to go and get some standard drop sheet that you might get from the hardware store, you may be better off putting some paper around it first and then just tucking the plastic inside, and that way you're not spraying straight over that plastic, or most of your overspray is not going to be getting on the plastic directly onto it, because then when you go to unmask it, those little bits of paint can flake off and end up landing back into your paint job and make a bit of a mess out of it. And last thing that you do after you've got it all masked up, again, just give it a wax and grease remover, give it a good wipe down with a clean rag. If you don't have the lint-free cloths that we do, we've got the Sontara wipes, the blue ones. They're pretty good. I like them. There's many different brands on the market, but if you don't have them, just bleached, clean cotton rags that have got a nice amount of sort of soak in them, sort of like t-shirt rags type thing, you know, that kind of the shirt will actually soak up a bit of the the material or the fluid, say from wiping the wax and grease remover off. And I prefer to wipe the blend sections down first, because if I was to go and wipe the primed area first and then get some of that primer dust and then wipe that over the blend area, you can actually have that underneath your clear coat. I have mentioned that a few times in other videos though. And then next up we've got to do that false edge mask. So I've actually done a few videos where I've gone into detail how to do that false edge mask. It's pretty simple really, and basically you're just flipping over just the very edge of it, so that when you paint that edge you're not going to get a hard edge there. It's just allowing that little bit of paint just to come up under the edge, and you're not going to get a hard edge there. Run the buff over that, Bob's your uncle, mate. And yeah, I'm using the Segola Mini Extreme gun here. It made it into, I think it was 7th or 6th or something like that in my top 8, but it did okay. It wasn't a gun that like just stood out to me as a wow, this gun's totally awesome, and it definitely wasn't totally crap. It's got a good build quality to it. Just a few little weird things like the cap, and you'll see in this video, this is literally the first time I'm using this gun, and the cap that goes on the top of the lid of the pot, it's got no hole in it. I don't know what they were thinking when they did that, but I was like putting a couple of coats on, and then I got to the point I'm like, not much paint is coming out, because the way the spray gun works, obviously gravity fed, and the gravity just comes down here, and you've got a little breather hole up there, and without that breather hole, no paint's going to come out. So because there is no hole in the Segola Mini Extreme Gun's lid, or the pot, no paint was coming through. So I had to pull it out and do away with it. Not a real big deal, but then when paint does go up to that cap, it's going to start dripping over the edge. So I guess it wouldn't be too hard for me to just get a small drill bit and drill it out, but I guess when you buy a brand new gun, you shouldn't have to do things like that, really, should you? Kind of like the full-size Segola, the 4600 Extreme, how they've got the gun filter inside the pot, and their own supplied gun filter doesn't fit into their own pot. It jiggles around and falls out when you're cleaning it. It's just left there scratching your head why they would have done that, like how that made it all the way through the R&D and onto the production line and then to the end user, and it's basically useless, you know. Again, not a massive deal, just make sure you strain your paint in there, but sometimes it can always, can't be too bad to have that last line of defense inside your gun. I prefer to run them myself, some people don't, but if there's an option there, I will usually use them. If you're running PPS, obviously it wouldn't be an issue. So I've obviously cut the drying times out, and I do have the heat on in the spray booth here, so it's set to about 28 to 30 degrees. I like to get it nice and warm in the booth, that way the base coat's going to dry down a bit quicker. I'm using solvent base, so that dries nice and quick. You put a coat on, blow a bit of air over it, that's flashed off, and put your next coat on. For a job like this, you put 3 to 5 coats depending on how well the colour covers. Like the finer silvers usually cover a lot better than the coarser silvers in solvent base, and that's because they've got a lot more binder in there to float those larger metallics. And what you saw me putting on just before with that black gun, that was just a bit of blending clear, stabilizer. This is 599 in the Standox system. There's one in every single paint system, and basically it's just clear base coat. All it does is fills in the sanding scratches from your prep work and allows your base coat to blend into it without having any halo effect, or, well, minimizing it, hopefully without having any if you're good at it. As it turned out, like if I am to look at this repair, I can pick the faults in it, and if you know it's there and you're really looking at it, yes, I'm sure most people could, but at the end of the day, it's just a quick tidy up. It's just an everyday car. It's just a Hyundai. It's not like it's a brand new Mercedes or a whatever top of the line luxury car or anything like that. And I got a little bit of like 2 specific comments on one of my videos where I did a Porsche Macan S. And I said, it's a nice car, so I wanted to do a good job on it. And they're like, oh, you should do a good job on every single car. I'd never get my car taken into you because you're dodgy. And it's like, mate, you've got to work to the conditions that the kind of cars that you're working on, Like, it's a couple of $1,000s worth of Hyundai. or a couple of $100,000 worth of Lotus or whatever it be, obviously you're going to do a little bit of a different job on it, you know. And that's not to say that you're dodgy, it's just how the world works, you know. And if you don't do that, well, probably more problems with you. If you're going to go and spend that much time on a car like this to make it look like it rolled out of the, you know, showroom floor, well, you're the idiot, really. I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm just going off on a bit of a rant, I guess, so hopefully I'm keeping you guys interested while painting some shit. So yeah, I like to heat my clear up these days. It's cooling down a little bit. Like, yeah, I know people from the UK will be laughing at me to say that low 20s is cold, but when it gets anything below 25 degrees, I will heat my clear up, get it up to about 30 degrees, and that will just allow me to put one coat on, it tacks off straight away, put your next coat on, bang, job done. And I'm about to do a little fade out, so I actually no longer have this gun. I sold it to a guy in the US who was really keen to have it, so I ended up letting it go. So I've actually been using the Iwata LPH80 for my blend out thinner, fade out thinner, but pretty good gun, this one. I kind of do miss it a little bit, but yeah, you gotta let them go, I guess, sometimes. And last thing is to pull off that false edge masking. You're best off pulling it off before you bake, so if there was any sort of bridging between that gap, that'll actually just sort of flow out in the bake cycle. I actually used a little bit of paint rocket in this too. It's a pretty cool product, very handy. It's a U-pole product, and you just put two drops into your clear coat and it'll just make it flash off really quickly. You don't even need to bake it, you know. If you're in the cold weather, you put a couple of drops of that paint rocket in and it'll sort of air dry. Obviously I've given it a bit of a bake, probably just gave it 20-25 minutes because I knew that I was going to polish it straight away. Cooled it right down, so if it's still warm you don't want to go and polish it. And again, if this had been left overnight, I might have just got the little Orbital sander and done it dry, but because it was sort of same day, my boss likes to call it like a Hungry Jack's or Burger King, I guess you'd call it over there in most of the world. Burger King, like drive-through type thing, he's just like bang, smash it out, get it out of here. So yeah, I'm usually the man up for the task. I don't mind doing this kind of stuff, I like it, I actually enjoy just smashing out the work, and these little spot repairs seem a little bit of a challenge. And look, you probably will be able to see that there's a slight low spot or a slight dent in front of my dent. I spoke to him, I said, hey, do you want to do that as well? And he's like, no, if we did that, we'd have to bring the colour a little bit too far up, and they're not worried about it. They just want the worst of it done, which was around the back of that quarter panel where it met up with the bumper bars. So for some reason, yeah, I did get quite a few lumps of crap landing in this job. One thing I've actually been doing lately is tack clothing the surrounding area, and that's the plastic, not just the repair itself. And I wasn't doing it at this point in time, so I can't really say whether or not that's where it came from, but from what I know now, I'm actually thinking it probably came off my own plastic, because sometimes when you cover a car up, it's got like a little bit of a layer of dust over it. You then go and put your plastic over the car, and then when you're opening it up, the side that's going to be open, that you're masking over and you're going to be painting around, actually starts upside down on the car when you're pulling it over the car. You then open it up like that, and that's actually what's going to be facing out. So any of that dust and stuff that's on your plastic can end up in your paint job. And look, I look at it and I'm like, why haven't I been doing this for the last, 15 or so years? But yeah, I guess it's just one of those things. You're constantly trying to improve your methods, and yeah, if you're not, I guess you got to ask yourself, why aren't you trying to improve yourself? And look, everyone watching this would be in that boat. If you're watching this, well, then you're definitely trying to improve your methods by learning the way someone else does it, and I myself have improved my methods, not only just from thinking of things myself, but reading comments. Some people say, hey, why don't you do this? And I give it a shot, and I'm like, well, that's better. I might give it a shot, and I might say, well, I don't like it that way, but at least I tried. So yeah, I've got the Roops full-size buff. Awesome buff, these things, basically indestructible. The only thing that you will have to do is change your brushes every now and then, and yeah, they're great. They're just so torquey. There's only one speed on these old bangers, and that's, yeah, pretty fast, but no, they're awesome. Yeah, just running that buff over. All I was using was 2000 grit and a bucket. As I say, it's a bit fresher, so I decided to use it wet, and a block it back, quick buff up, beautiful. Yeah, I'm starting to run out of shit to say. I think you guys got the basic idea of the video. Let's just hang around for a couple more minutes and see what's if anything else exciting happens. Oh yeah, the compound that I'm using is the Juice, the Super C. I like it. I quite highly rate it. I used to always use Forecla. Used to love the Forecla, but these days I find it's pretty tricky to clean off. I guess all compound can be, but I just found it a little bit messy, and sometimes you get a little bit of memory with it, you know, like cutback marks sort of coming back through. But at the end of the day, that can happen with any compound. You just got to generate a bit of heat in there and warm that panel up. You're sort of basically like melting the clear back in a way, I guess. So if you hang around for a couple more minutes, we'll do a quick before and after and call that a video. I've decided to do a full tools and materials list of everything that I had to use, including things like compressors. I'm not going to go right into specs, but I will just list them all down, all the stuff that I used on this job, mainly just so that people that are DIYers can actually say, well, what do I need to do a job like this? It's not going to be something I do on every one of my videos because it just takes too much time and it turns into a job. I've got to enjoy making these videos as well, don't forget. So yeah, that's about it. That's the before. Had some damage down the back there. And the after. And that's a sellable vehicle. That's all. It's probably sold by now. I painted this car a couple of months ago. You can see the colour is a touch off, but bumper bars are usually a little bit different anyway. Hope you guys have enjoyed watching this series. If you have, give it a big thumbs up. I'll do my best to get back to any relevant questions in the comment section down below. Until then, get out there and paint some shit. Thanks for watching, and this has been another Gunman production. Goodbye.